Scott, welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. Great to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk with you today.
We've got the cameras on, so we'll put this on the YouTube channel as well for people listening out there. If you ever want to check it out, the Hidden Why on YouTube. All the interviews and other bits and pieces go up there as well. Scott, Freedom Street. Tell us about Freedom Street.
I think Freedom Street is awfully aligned with almost everything I've seen you do. Whether it's just identifying what freedom means to you. That's really the key component behind Freedom Street. Identifying what living a rich life means, identifying how you can live your legacy today, and really owning the future. What does that future look like? Once you've defined that, getting to Freedom Street is a lot easier. You have to develop that path, but it starts with some groundwork in the beginning, some foundational stuff. And it also happens to be the name of the company that I started 6 years ago. And it's just been a common theme in my life and something that I'm very, very grateful to be able to utilize. Freedom is something that's quite special.
Do you think freedom is the most sort of motivational force behind things that you do, or is it the top pinnacle, or is there something else there? Is it just a step along the way?
Yeah, I think finding out, so the hidden why, right? Finding out the hidden why behind what freedom means to any individual and connecting them to what that is what I've been doing for 20 years. So, freedom is a powerful word, but if not applied appropriately, it can be wasted. And so having to find that connection point is really, the driver for us, and helping people identify what's so important to them.
Yeah. So finding those values behind the individual, really. Is freedom saying that you've always had an association with? Like, is it saying that just came about through your career?
Yeah, I think ultimately when you look at a level of freedom, anytime you're an entrepreneur, you're kind of free from normal restraints. Like, you're not afraid to take chances. Entrepreneurs tend to be people that are creative. They're interested in things that they love. They're passionate. They're driven. And so, I think I've always lived with a level of freedom, but financial freedom is something that also starts to open your eyes to a different level of freedom. And I think working in the realm of money and finances for so many years, some people get caught on the financial freedom so hard that they miss the very reason they're doing everything they're doing. And so it's just about, I talk in the book a couple times about, I've had the privilege to do a couple of eulogies for my grandparents. I've done all of my grandparents, all four of them. I did the eulogy. Yeah. And not once during those eulogies did I talk about their professional past. I talked about who they loved, how they loved, what they stood for, their values, their core beliefs, the things that drove them to make decisions. I described their parenting and their lives. And we might have mentioned parts of profession and parts of that, but it wasn't the driving force. And I think that's really, establishing that and balancing that out is such a key component to life that a lot of us maybe lose sight of. And I can't say that there haven't been times that I also have lost sight of that.
Yeah. So you've got a company, what is it? Freedom Street
Partners.
Freedom Street Partners. Now you advise or coach, mentor financial advisors as well in that company. And is that your background as a financial advisor? I assume it would be.
Yep. So for 20 years, at about 23 years old, I'm 43 now. At 23 years old, I went into the industry and started from scratch and built a business from zero, advising clients and helping people build their financial picture in an appropriate way. So over the years, I did a lot of mentorship, a lot of coaching, a lot of leadership, and started my own company about 6 years ago. And we've grown that to about throughout the States and 45 advisors. And so we definitely spend a lot of time still focused helping individual clients, but I particularly spend a lot of time coaching and consulting advisors and business owners in the industry or outside the industry, how to best get to that next chapter. So
Right.
A lot of people get to that next chapter and they're just unprepared. And the next chapter could be what's most important next for you. It could be selling your business. But a lot of them, the impact is their business. And so it's our goal and objective to help them find other things to help be better prepared for that next chapter, maybe more emotionally prepared, not just mentally prepared.
Okay. So tell us, starting out in financial advising when you're such a young age, 23, I mean, did you have all the riches and the financial advice to give then?
Yeah, I think it's like anything else. I focused on what I could do well. And what I could do well was be an accountability partner, a coach.
Yeah.
I was drowning myself in learning and growing. And, like any profession, I would imagine, the best professional footballers in the world or soccer players or whatever it is, they all start young and they're babies in it, right? So I was a baby in it, yes. Yeah. But I definitely learned my role and surrounded myself with mentors and people that guided me, and I was able to make very good decisions and build a really great business over the last 20 years. And it started with being young and learning, and that growth mindset has guided me throughout my career.
That's good. Well, I mean, what advice would you give to some young people out there? Because I know I'm in real estate myself, and I get, I've been doing it for a while now, but I entered as a mature age as well. But I get a lot of young people coming in, they get the thrill out of this because they probably see all the, the money people can make and those agents that drive around in flash cars and, maybe they just want in on all that. But then they're starting out young and they have that lack of confidence and experience and wisdom there to really push them through and make it a success. And you've come from that place. What advice would you give one of those young people?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that stand out. Number one is whatever you're doing today isn't necessarily what you'll be doing forever. So it is a lot of young people think that they're starting a career, and they are, but the career is going to go where it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
And so having some patience to let it mature is something I wish I could tell my 20-year-old self. It's important to learn the craft at the space you're in now. The second thing I would say is mentorship. If you're not learning from people that have been there and done it and grown in whatever industry you want to be great at, you're missing out on the greatest opportunities. And then the last thing I would say is, having the passion and work ethic to just go out there and do the best job you possibly can. Put in extra time, put in extra hours. Like if you really want something, most young people say they want something, but in order to get something of value, you must give up something in return. And a lot of times that's time, right? We have to dedicate time, and eventually you hope to have more quality time that's being spent and more. So if I'm in real estate, I want to be buying higher quality properties that are going to yield me more of a return, but I might not know what those properties are early in the game. That's a big picture. From a granular level, I would say save early, spend less, simple things that can make really, really huge differences later in life. I mean, the very 10% of savings that I did from the time I was 23 of every dollar I earned, just making sure that before I did anything, it was a minimum of 10%. That simple rule, even when I had nothing, was so valuable, but it wasn't valuable for the first decade. It was valuable for the last decade. And, those are things that give us better choices, help us decide whether the next opportunity is one we can choose, or if we have to be confined to the space that we're in now, just because we might not have given ourselves the freedom that we could have had had we saved a little bit more.
Yeah. No, good advice. The idea of patience, I mean, as a young person and nowadays in particular, maybe you think there's, everything wants it now. They want everything and they want it now. Like, in that long game, that idea of long-term vision seems to be lost a bit, and I'm guilty of that too. I just wanted everything and I ran for it as fast as I could, but didn't actually know where I was going.
Yeah, I'm a sprinter. And the older I got, the better I realized that sprinting is how I do my best work. So, if you're not an endurance runner and you have a hard time seeing that super long vision, right? Or that really far in advance end game. Sometimes you have to just create goals that you're shooting for and you're sprinting towards, and then you have to breathe. And, if I'm playing, and I played soccer for, 30 plus years, and now I'm not much of a player at all. I really wasn't much of a player anyway, but I love the sport.
Yeah.
And when I played as I played a striker, and I was a sprinter. I'd love to sprint, have that exertion of adrenaline, and then breathe while the play behind me develops, getting into the right position, being positioned in the right place on the field so I can receive the ball in the best possible spot and sprint again. Sometimes you sprint and you don't get the ball. You run as fast as you can. You make the right run. Everything is perfect about what you did, but you don't receive the ball. But it creates another opportunity for somebody else to score, or it creates another opportunity on the field to win. And the point behind that is, I think some of us are just built to be sprinters. And, that means we're going to have lots of good, quick runs in our lives. And the endurance game adds up. It's lots of really awesome sprints with some breathing in between.
And I think an endurance person, they don't focus on the finish line. They focus on taking that next step or throwing that next arm over, depending on what you're talking about sports wise, but it's that very next step that they're focused on. But in the back of their mind, I guess they have that longer term dream or vision of that finish line, But I think what happens with a lot of us is we go out there and we have that vision, but we want it to be on the next step. And so we're putting all this energy into that next step. It's the wrong step, when we just have to go, you know what, I've just got to, and I've been thinking about this a lot recently, because I think it's kind of painful, some of the stuff I do, but I just go, you know what, if I just do it, and I just focus on the next step, this 1 hour will pass, or this 2 hour call session will pass, or whatever it is, it'll just pass, but I'm still visioned for that end goal. And I know these little steps will get me there eventually. And I just have to have that patience, which is really hard for someone that's a sprinter and maybe no patience.
Yeah, I can't say that I have much patience. I don't think my staff would tell you that I'm the most patient man in the world. My wife and my kids would not tell you I'm the most patient man in the world, but I work really darn hard at it. And I try to be aware of it. I don't focus too much on my blind spots. I'm aware of them. I'm growing in them, but I try to really focus on my strengths. And so when you have high energy and you go into a room, you bring everything you've got. When we start talking, you are the most important person in the world to me in this moment right now. And I'm going to give everything I have in this moment. And when I leave, I'm exhausted. I have to breathe. I have to take a break, but that's because of the way that we do things. And patience is difficult for me and probably you, but it's also been something that I think I really established after 40. I started to fall in love with the journey. I wasn't always in love with the journey. I was always focused on the result. And, this is a great advice piece for young people too. I mean, the journey is where people
to take, of course, because I think they've got to go on that journey, but
that's the fun part. Like, the journey is the fun part. If you can loop in fun and the actual result is a win, but you're winning every day because you did something important, or you did something of value, or you helped somebody, that's where I feel like today I really do break down more on a daily basis than I do on, I still take my yearly, I still do everything on a yearly basis, on a quarterly basis. I look at everything, but I genuinely, at the end of every day, when I lay down, I'll often say, man, today was a good day. Here's a couple things that made it good. And I'm very grateful for that. Thank you.
Yeah. What are your mechanisms for dealing with your lack of patience, I suppose? I think lack of patience is actually quite a big strength in many ways for me, and probably you as well.
Yeah. I love the saying that our blind spots are simply our strengths turned up too loud. So if you take your strengths and your high energy and your high intensity, you turn that up too loud, sometimes it's too much. If you're a great communicator, sometimes the best thing to do is not say anything at all. And people that are great communicators have a hard time with that, right? So I think you're right. I think not having absolutely of great value to success in getting something done in real estate, in helping someone reach their goals quicker than they ever dreamed. at the same time, in everyday life, the very things that make us great professionally often are the things that challenge us in everyday life. And so that's where I think little things like taking a moment before I enter into the home. I'm in the car, I'm pulling in the driveway. It's been a long day at work. I've been going 1,000 miles a minute, and I'm supposed to walk in and just have a totally new look on life. And I should, but that requires me to take a moment to breathe. I've added meditation into my day. And probably the most important thing I've done is I've slowed down the way I start. So if you're a sprinter, I cannot start sprinting or I'm exhausted by the time I walk in the door. So what I do is my morning routine is very valuable to me. And by creating a slower start, I read scripture in the morning, I meditate, I have a cup of coffee while my son gets ready for school and he sits in the room with us. We watch a little sports center. It's slow. I don't read emails. I don't do anything work related. And I do that so that I can actually have a little more patience in my day. That sets the tone for the rest of the day.
So what is a morning routine? When do you start? When do you wake up? When does it start? When does it end? And when do you start work? Run us through that.
So my wife wakes up about 5:15. That's when her alarm goes off because she's a school teacher. And so she likes to have about an hour in the morning for herself. I prefer 6 o'clock. But I'll be honest, a lot of days I wake up between 5:30 and 6, especially if I want a little bit of time with her before the kids get up and a cup of coffee or just some time to chat because we miss each other a lot. So the very first thing I do when I get up is I meditate, whether it's 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It depends on what I have to get done that day, how much time I have. But I've given myself the grace to not have a mandatory amount because I got to the point where if I needed 10, but I only had 5, I felt guilty. So I literally just make sure meditation is first.
What does that look like for you? Like, what is a meditation? Is it just sitting there and breathing, or is it a guided meditation with an app or something?
I use a guided meditation. I've used Headspace. I use Simple Habit. I use Waking Up. I have 3 that I use on a regular basis and I rotate them. Simple Habit has a 1 minute one that I start my day with. Sometimes, even if I'm going to do a longer one after I start, it's just to kind of set the tone. And if I want a longer one, I'll do something on waking up 10, 15 minutes. And then I honestly go right into scripture. And I started when COVID hit, honestly, I'm a bit of a control freak. I like to think of all the things I can do and plan, and man, everything was thrown away. Everything. I couldn't go to the gym. I was going to the gym every morning. I had a personal trainer. Like everything I had done was changed for the first time in 12 years. And the truth is, about 1 day into it, after feeling a little bit disheveled, the next morning, I had said for years I wanted to read the Bible. I've read, but I'd never read all the way through. And I picked it up and I started reading. And I started doing that every single day. And that's something I have not done since March of 2020. And so that makes you stop because there's leadership lessons, there's teachings, there's prayer. It's a moment where I've slowed down, and something that if you believe in something bigger than yourself, whatever that is for you, it helps you to redefine what's most important. And so that sets the tone for my day. And then I'd get a little stretch in because I am over 40 now and I want to make sure I'm moving right. So, and then I go downstairs and have a cup of coffee, and that's when the day starts.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's good to have that routine. It certainly helps me as well. And I think it's helped me in many ways control that lack of patience, which actually drives you as well. But look, going back to your career and your book, you're helping financial advisors, and you've written this book, Freedom Street. Now, from what I can gather in the quick review I've had of it, it's not about financial advice at all, really. It's about leaving a legacy more so, and about how to, enjoy the journey, I suppose, which is where you've sort of come to realize it's more about the journey than the result. Clarify if I'm wrong in that sense of the book, but what made you write this book?
Yeah, it's really a culmination of several things. Number one, is I was in dealing with financial advisors. I was finding that I was working with a lot of them towards the end of their career and the latter part of their career, and finding that everybody wanted to sell their, when I say everybody, I mean, everyone I was talking to wanted to sell their business, move on to something else, or retire, or do all these things, but they just weren't ready. Yeah. And so there was a common theme. And then I thought back on all the 20 years, a financial advisor is a unique career because as a psychiatrist, you spend some time as a marriage counselor, you spend some time as a coach and consultant, you help their children when they're thinking about dropping out of college. You might be the last resort that the parents say, will you talk to Scott, at least have a couple of ideas? And I've had the ability over 20 years to have hundreds of conversations, thousands of conversations a year with people that are all in these stages. And here's what the book was about. The book is about finding freedom for you. It's about living a rich life, living a legacy, not leaving a legacy, right? Leaving a legacy is inevitable if you live it. But a lot of people wait until they want to get, the word they use is give back. I've done all these things, I've made all this money, and now I want to give back. But if you focused on doing that along the way, and you made that kind of an every year, every month, every day occurrence, the impact is immense. It's amazing when you are living your impact, that it's not tied to your career. It's not tied to one thing. When it's only tied to one thing, it's dangerous and it's impossible to own your future. So while my experience comes from financial advising, while my experience comes from running a business, for 20 years, it's really come from studying, listening, helping people achieve their goals of all different levels of wealth, and really helping them find their own freedom. Because that's what a coach and consultant really does in life. That's what our objective is. And I think that's what the book was about. I have to use my experience. Yeah. And so I think a lot of people might be turned off in the original part because they think, in fact, I've done 15 of these podcasts, and it's funny, some of them start talking about financial advising because they're like, I don't even know why this guy's on my show. Then we get to the point and we're like, oh, wow, this is way bigger than a career. This is way bigger than something that maybe is a profession. It's really about a model, a core value of life, and finding your own freedom and what that means to you, and how we can dive deeper into that connection.
Yeah, I guess you can't talk about financial advice unless you know what that needs to look like for that particular individual, their values and where they want to go. Because where I want to end up and where you want to end up, totally different. So you can't give advice that's generic in that sense. So you need to really delve in and find out the why of the person. Yeah,
it's not about the money at all. This is the one of the biggest lessons in life is if you spend your life chasing money, you never catch it.
Yeah.
Zig Ziglar said that if you do three things, you'll be running from money. Number one is you got to help people. Number two is you have to turn a profit. So there's a disconnection, especially nowadays. People think that if we help people, you can't turn a profit. But if you could turn a profit and own a business and develop something that helps people and is profitable, and then serve something bigger than yourself, whatever that is to you, you'll be running from money. And then your decisions will all be focused around the things that matter most. Because when you focus on the money, you miss life. When you focus on life, money is a byproduct. It can do things to develop our lives. It can give us more security and safety and provide opportunities and experiences, but it really cannot provide love. It cannot provide security. It cannot provide, not the things internal. And a lot of people have seen that lately in the last couple of years with what we've been dealing with. You have to go inside sometimes.
So what's your bigger thing? Like, you've got this business model here that you're profiting from, you're helping other people using that. So that's your value exchange. Now, what are you focusing on? Like, what's your bigger thing? How are you having a bigger impact on leaving your legacy?
I think I want to live this impact. And I think the point is that in this book, I took models of things that I've lived by, whether it's figuring out that freedom had nothing to do with doing whatever I wanted. It was all about discipline. These are all lessons I had to learn. And I just simply share what I did. My goal is this. I do a ton of videos. We're building out a new YouTube channel. We're really developing a way to reach people, whoever it is that needs to hear a little bit more of a positive message in a world that is a little too negative, a little too much.
Yeah.
And I think that experience, my goal and my why behind this is really to create an impact and to live this. Man, I get texts and emails and video messages and all kinds of stuff every day from so many random people that are not in my industry, that have nothing to do with me, that have everything to do with the message that we're putting out into the world. And that's what I want to do. I want to continue to get that message out. And that message about freedom is helping people define that, connect the dots, and understand that the path they're on today is the right path, wherever it is. Even if it's a dead end and rock bottom, it's the start of a new day. It's the start of freedom for you now. What does it mean, and how do we get there? And, and if we can help more people really discover that, especially when they're looking at the next chapter, whatever that is for them, that's the objective.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes you feel good, huh?
That's my goal, man. I love doing these. I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to share this message all across the world with people just like yourself, who are bringing great conversations to many, many people. And having this type of conversation is powerful. Yeah. Just one person listening to this could change their life. And you never know when they need that. You never know when one person needs that. No,
and I think there's so much you can take on every day. But again, you're right about that negative information that's constantly out there, the fear in the media. You probably don't listen to the news, neither do I. Switch that negative stuff off and take it out of my channel and try and draw in the positives. Now, there's probably so many podcasts you can listen to in a day, but just a little 5-minute clip here or a 20-minute clip there, of that positive message every day, that'll change what's up here and change your focus going forward. And you'll start to forget about all the shit that you don't have and that that you're hurting from, and you'll start focusing on all the stuff that you're grateful for, that you do have, Yeah.
Yeah. When you love something, you can't, when you really love something and you're passionate about it, you're living in the present moment. Every time we separate from the present moment, we start to get into a place that can take us in a whole different direction. That could be positive. It could be negative. Yeah. But your news media is all negative loop. I mean, I read, and I'll read something, and if I don't like the way the tone is, I'll go read another news channel's version of it so I can identify whether or not it's real or fake or false or uncomfortable. I want to learn. I'm not trying to be ignorant.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people kind of take it the different way, but news is meant to be gossip. Gossip is meant to be negative. And there's nothing positive about that. It does nothing but make our lives more dramatic than they need to be.
Yeah, no, it takes you to the wrong place, which is, you got to surround yourself by that right message, whether it's news channels or people around you. You mentioned something before about the contradictions of freedom and what you thought freedom meant. And then you throw in the word discipline there. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think discipline is freedom. Aristotle said it. Jocko said it in his book. If you don't realize this, it takes us a long time. I mean, I came from a pretty disciplined family, and my dad was pretty strict. And I think that growing up, I thought, when I'm on my own, I'll do whatever I want. Right. And I made decisions early on that luckily were the right decisions. But in a business, for example, if you're reactive, you can't be responsive. If you're not disciplined in your day, you can't have patience. We just talked about patience a second ago. It's a simple blind spot for most people that are entrepreneurs and driven and high energy. But if you start your day a certain way with discipline, it's amazing how the entire day flows, how many things you can fit in. The analogy I use is the jar. If you take the jar and you put the big rocks in, the priorities, the most important thing, and you're disciplined about those most important things, it's amazing how the pebbles then fit in and the sand filters in, and you fit way more in that jar than you do if you're just putting in the sand first. And I'll use social media as the sand. There are so many people that say, I meant to get together with you last month. I just didn't have time. I meant to have dinner with my dad, but we couldn't find the time. And yet they're on Instagram for 2.5 hours a day, and they're tweeting 30 times a day. And I'm not saying that social media isn't great, but it's the sand. If dad's the most important person, then I gotta filter the sand out and put dad in there first. And I think that's what discipline is all about. It's about prioritizing what's most important, living that core value, and developing a strategy to be most successful for you.
Yeah.
And, that's where I've found freedom has been through disciplined approaches.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. Couldn't agree more. When it comes, and this is one of the questions that I ask all guests, is what's your definition of success? But I know in your in the blurb about the book, at least, you talk about living a rich life. And I guess when you're a financial advisor with that background and you're talking about rich, people probably immediately go to money, right? How do you define living a rich life, or what is rich?
Well, in the book, I tell the story of my oldest son. My boys used to share a room, even though we had plenty of rooms for them to go in. I had them bunk bed when they were young, because I figured that at least they would love each other at night when they went to bed, even if they fought all day long, right? And it was a good theory, and it worked. And one night I was putting them to bed, and they both were kind of talking, and it was like, all right, guys, you got to go to bed. And as I'm shutting the door, my oldest son goes, "Hey, Dad, would you be rich if you didn't have us?" What a powerful question, right? The answer financially is I chuckled immediately, because I was like, immediately you go to money. That's where everybody goes, right? And that's what he meant. And I said, buddy, let me tell you something. I might have more money, but I can't tell you the emptiness I would feel knowing what I have today, how difficult it would be for me to even understand. Because let me tell you what rich is. Rich is investing in other people. Rich is having a family with people around you that matter. I have an instant legacy. If I fail, if I'm positive, if I succeed, my children will understand. They'll tell stories about me one day. I will live on, whether it's positive or negative. I'm pretty sure it'll be positive, but maybe it won't be. But I explained to my son that day, I said, living a rich life is way more than money. I don't need money to have a rich life. Now, money helps. It definitely helps us make better decisions. I don't mind flying places a little quicker than driving. I don't mind going to a better resort occasionally and being able to take my family with us. My mom, my dad, my siblings. There are definitely things money can do for you, but if you get caught in the money, you're not living richly at all. It's all the other things in the jar. It's the big rocks in the jar, and money is usually not one of them.
Yeah. I love that jar. I'm going to find that video today.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. It's a great video. And I have a little, I put a little excerpt in the book where you could see what I kind of labeled it as. But when you think about that, what are the biggest rocks that your guests have found? Like, are there things that they define when they answer that question on a regular basis, or is there one common theme?
I think, I've written a book about it, and I think that, the fundamentals in life that you often overlook because you're getting dragged this way and that way, focusing on the chase of money and material goods, which is how the society works. I think once you realize it's not about that, it's about friends and family and relationships, that category of relationships, the next category of health, the next category of contribution, those things are those rocks. So if you can find a way every day to just give a little, you can find a way every day just to take care of yourself. If you can find a way every day just to nurture a relationship, those things are the fundamental rocks, in that, and growth, find a way to learn every day. Yeah,
100%. If you're not growing, you're dying. Yeah. That's what Lou Holt said. And it's so true. If you're not growing, you're dying. If your company's not growing, it's dying. If your relationships aren't growing, they're dying. Yeah. And there's only one way. It has to be growth.
Yeah. So you just got to focus on those things, and do that every day. And like you said, have a disciplined approach to those things too. And which is why the morning routine is so good, because you're focusing straight away on that growth, on that learning, because you're doing a little bit of exercise, so you're taking care of your health, you're doing a bit of growth activity, learning, and then you've got a disciplined structure for the day to help you get towards the goals that you want to do. And it'll all fall in place because you're taking care of the fundamentals. Whereas I don't think, a lot of people don't. And I never was like that. It's taken me years to get here, and I've still got a long way to go, I think. But a lot of people don't live that way.
I think we get derailed. So one of the things that I think is a big challenge is this balancing act. Everybody that wants to add, it's the new year. They want to be a healthier version of themselves, right? So the minute that they dedicate extreme amounts of time to health, something else may take a back seat. Like there's only so much time and energy in the day to do things, right? And so we get off kilter in things. And then I think we get a little hard on ourselves about the lack of balance. But life is about balancing the imbalance, right? If you can be self-aware that you become imbalanced somewhere, maybe you've been working super hard on a project, but it's coming to a head and the real estate deal's closing. And now you have a little extra time. So you're going to take your family on a vacation. Maybe they didn't get the time that you really wanted them to have the last 3 weeks, but the next week you're going to dedicate 100% of that time to them, with them, for them. You know, it's about balancing that and not feeling so guilty when we're not.
Yeah.
That also is imperative because we're hard on ourselves. We all are.
How do you find that balance? Because you know, and I feel this too. You're a hard worker. You dedicate so much of your time. You're passionate about it too. Like when you're passionate about something and you've just got this natural your work ethic, it's hard to stop and switch off. Yeah. And to find that balance there is incredibly hard. And I'm trying, this is one of my focuses this year, is to just bring back a bit of that balance where I'm not sitting in the office until 7 o'clock, you know, because I don't think that's necessary. And I don't think it's as productive either. I realize that I'm productive for a good short few hours and I can still work all day, but I don't know if it's as productive. So I need to bring that balance into it. What do you do there to create that sense of balance?
It kind of starts with uncomfortability. A lot of times we stay where we're comfortable. So if we stay at work too long, we're staying because we're comfortable in that setting and we kind of understand it. We know it. Everything goes our way. Like it's a little bit about comfort, right? So the way I get around this is usually we get overwhelmed. You get overwhelmed in something. And the way I deal with overwhelm is action. And it starts with identifying, pausing, and then identifying. You have 4 pillars. I have 4 quadrants in my book. It's all in whatever you define as the most important things in your life, right? I think that relationships is definitely imperative. I think work and your livelihood, your wealth, whatever it may be, is something that gets people overwhelmed. I think health and spirituality are the other 2 big areas when I define it. And I basically take, you know, those old calendars that were sat on your desk, the big ones that you could write everything in. And, you know, I have one on my desk right now, right below me. And it's about this big and it has every day of the month. And I have all these things written on it. One day I was overwhelmed years ago and I ripped one of those things off and I just drew a T chart. And I wrote everything that was overwhelming me or that was on my brain. I brain dumped on everything about relationships, anything about my spouse, anything about the kids. Is there something I've been meaning to do with them that I didn't do? Is there a conversation I had to have? You know, did I want to make something for dinner that I've been telling everyone I was going to make, my spaghetti and meatballs? You know, what is it that's bothering me? That's everything there. Then I would go to work and wealth. And that one's a long one. Sometimes it took a whole day to get through all the things at work that I felt like I needed to get done. Health and spirituality. I'm looking at my chart right now. And there are things spiritually, I have dedicated a ton of time the last 2 years, but the last part of the year, I did not work out. My personal trainer got sick. I didn't go in. I was traveling a bunch. I had all these excuses. So when I went through, I was imbalanced in health. So I go in after I get my overwhelm on a page and I circle the biggest priorities. And then I just work towards action. What steps do I need to do to execute and implement upon those things? And I don't care how small they are. It might be a to-do list for the little tiny details of things that are just holding me back. But it's that it clogs your brain. That stuff clogs your brain. So you got to get it out. You got to put it down on paper. You got to put it down somewhere. And then you have to work through it. And when I work through it, I'm relieved. I'm not overwhelmed anymore. It's not scary when it's written down on a page.
No, you're right. Good buddy advice. Hey, it's exciting, mate. Your book's doing well.
Yes, we hit Amazon bestseller. We've been hit a couple categories. We continue to get it out there to everybody, and hopefully the readers will get something out of it that they can execute and implement in their life. That was really what it was about. It was my story, but it was my story with execution points. Every chapter at the end, every section, every chapter has things we can do things that I do all the time that I've shared. Audit your time, make a list of your top 10 relationships, find a journal or planner that you enjoy using. I've been through 17 of them. I could tell you I change all the time, so figure it out. But there's things in here that I think can help people. And that's all I did it for, was to help people.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. How can people best reach out to you, find more information about what you're doing there?
Thanks. I always appreciate the platform. ScottDanner.com is very easy to find me.
Yeah.
That's a great way to book me for speaking or coaching or consulting. I also have recently, because I'm in the financial industry, we have pretty tough regulations on our YouTube and all that kind of stuff. So when I launched the book, I also launched a new YouTube channel. So it's brand new. It's under Scott Danner. And we're putting out videos on these topics every day, every week, interviews, different things. And I hope that that's a good way that really starts to take off and help people. So when you need that one bit of positivity to neutralize the news, you can grab it from that. So, and then obviously the book's on Amazon and all major buying spots, whatever they are.
Yeah.
My wife ordered it from Target, so you can get it from anywhere.
We'll get the link in the show notes there, guys, too, for listening out there. Hiddenwhy.com show notes will be there. Links to Scott. And Scott, thanks once again for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very grateful. Great conversation.
Been a pleasure. Absolutely. Guys, check it out, thehiddenwhy.com. Until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon.